Hello and welcome to Better You Today. On Better You Today, we aspire and strive to make a good first impression on you. Hoping you stayed glued to our channel, watching from beginning to the end. On today's edition of the program, we will be beaming our searchlight on that burning, discomforting, and irritable sensation felt in the heart. That is heartburn. Is it the heart that is being affected by this ailment? A consultant family physician and gastroenterologist will demystify these and some other puzzles. Welcome to Better You Today on the network service of the NTA. My name is Yetunde Jayola. I'm so glad and excited you're seated to watch this package. A short break beckons. Please stay tuned.
When I eat and I don't allow the food to digest, or when I eat and talk, it happens to me while it shocks me and it affects the chest. I've experienced it and I know other persons have experienced it, so it's something that occurs to people. Even some persons, when you're taking water and you're rushing it, it also affects.
I have a friend that he have heartburn. He gets something that he's not supposed to be eating, but if you eat, the heartburn will come out, it will surface. Because heartburn, some people, if you take maybe beans, the heartburn will be starting worrying him. Or some, if you then take garri, the heartburn will start. So you that you have your own body, you should study yourself that this thing are not supposed to eat it. This thing are supposed to eat it. Because when you avoid what you're not supposed to eat, you will avoid it and the heartburn will not surface.
I've been experiencing it and I still used to experience it. So it's a kind of disturbance that occurs within the heart. Most especially when you notice that maybe you eat a particular food that maybe, so it makes the breathing difficult and at times it makes you to feel thirsty. It doesn't normally occur ordinarily. Most especially I experience it maybe when I eat beans, yam or garri.
Let's say if they eat peppery food and if they eat too much salt and if they don't eat on time, if they eat beans. I know somebody that when he eats beans, he used to have heartburn.
Sometimes maybe you have a food that is cold or leftover food. Some can cook maybe semo. Like my people sometimes want to eat semo, maybe the leftover in the morning. It says very good to eat. They will not even warm it, not knowing that the food have overstayed. They may warm it, but that sour nature can also trigger it to my own beliefs.
Thank you for keeping faith with our program. It's now time for a mini documentary on heartburn. Please don't go anywhere.
In a report published by the National Library of Medicine in 2019 on the Global, Regional and National Burden of Gastroesophageal Reflux Disease (GERD) indicates that there has been a steady increase in the prevalence of heartburn globally over the years. A 77.53% year-on-year increase was recorded from the study involving 204 countries, many of which have never been assessed before. Prevalence of heartburn lowers a patient's quality of life and has imposed severe economic burden running into millions of dollars. The study also reveals that Advancing age has been associated with increasing risks of heartburn. Furthermore, women have slightly higher rates of coming down with heartburn amongst other GERD compared to their male counterparts. Only 49% of patients with GERD selected heartburn and regurgitation as their most troublesome, followed by dyspepsia, bloating, regurgitation, and abdominal pain or discomfort that was not characterized by dyspepsia. The availability of estimate data for disease burden for heartburn GERD will provide a better understanding of the impact of GERD on population health and the need for appropriate preventive strategies in health resources allocation.
On Better You Today, our philosophy is in supporting individuals to grow his or her consciousness, ability, and taking actionable steps towards achieving a holistic wellness and well-being. Dr. Lukman Abdulkarim, a consultant family physician and gastroenterologist, is on set to add value to our health and living. Heartburn is the focus of this discourse. See you at the other end.
When people say heart burns, they think the heart is burning, but it's essentially a burning sensation in the chest, and not the heart that is actually burning. Is not the source of the pain. But heartburn typically is like a burning sensation or hotness or peppery sensation in the chest, which is usually due to reflux of the stomach content. When we have the stomach content, acid, food, particles going back into the esophagus, and that causes some inflammation in the esophagus, and that leads to what we call the heartburns. Medically, it leads to a condition we call the gastroesophageal reflux disease, which simply means gastro means stomach, and we know esophagus. So it means when stomach content refluxes, that means going back into the esophagus. So we call it gastroesophageal reflux disease, what we simply term as GERD, GERD. So that's typically what causes, what we call heartburns. The esophagus is not designed to withstand acid. The stomach is designed to withstand acid. And when we swallow food, it's expected that the food will go from the esophagus to the stomach, then to the small intestine. But when we have any reason for stomach content, acid content to go back into the esophagus, they may typically cause that heartburns. There are a number of predisposing factors. We wouldn't really call them causes. We rather refer to them as predisposing factors, because these are things that may occur in one person and it may cause heartburns, whereas in another person it may not cause heartburns. Top on the list of predisposing factors is what we call hiatal hernia. It's a situation whereby when the junction between the esophagus and the stomach, instead of it to coincide with the level we call the diaphragm, is meant to make it, we call it competent, it's meant to make it tight, so that when food passes, goes into the stomach, food or acid is not able to come back up. Now, when people have that condition, part of the stomach is pulled above the diaphragm, and that may allow acid and food content to easily go up into the esophagus. That is a major predisposing factor to heartburns, to GERD. Now, there are other conditions, like maybe people that are taking some certain medication, in which that junction between the esophagus and the stomach is affected by those medications. Those medications may make it, instead of it being tight shut, it may make it lax, and when it is lax, acid can easily trickle up. Now, when people wear clothes, that are very tight fitting, putting a lot of pressure on the abdomen, people that have other conditions that makes maybe fluid or other things accumulate in the abdomen, or pregnant women in which the abdominal pressure is increased, that may also predispose people to developing, heartburns, because when the abdominal pressure is increased, it may force the acid through the junction between the esophagus and the stomach right into the esophagus. Now, when people eat and they eat large quantity of food, at times that may put a lot of pressure. It increases the stomach pressure, and when the pressure is increased, acid may also be forced up. When some people eat and they maybe go to lie down immediately, the acid may also move up from the stomach into the esophagus. So at times we tell our patients that when they eat, they wait for like 2-3 hours before they lie down to sleep. Some people, it may be some particular kind of food that may trigger this symptom of heartburn, not just the acid, but being that the acid might have caused some degree of inflammation in the esophagus. When they eat some particular kind of food, then they may develop such symptoms. But we wouldn't say that these food are the causes. Other things like alcohol, like smoking cigarettes, may predispose to heartburns. People get so anxious because they think the problem is from the heart. We see quite a number of people, they have seen the experts that we call cardiologists to check their hearts, believing that the problem is from the heart. But after they have the cardiologist review, they see that the problem is not actually from the heart. So it may cause that kind of anxiety in such patients that there's a problem with the heart. Now, when we are able to rule out, heart conditions, and we know that this is strictly gastroesophageal reflux disease, things that may result from that, aside the burning sensation there, we have some other symptoms. People may have that chest pain that may not even be burning. Some may have the acid going all the way into the throat and causing inflammation in the throat. Some it may even go into their airways, into the larynx, and may affect their voice. So may have this hoarse voice, due to acid reflux. Some, because of the acid reflux into the larynx, may develop cough. The cough is just like a protective mechanism to try to clear out the acid from the throat. And you see people with cough on a long-term basis. Some may not even have cough, but you just see them constantly clearing their throat. They just be like all the time clearing their throat. This may also be from the acid reflux. Now, some may even develop what looks like an asthma, because the acid goes all the way into the airways, gets into the lungs, and they develop breathlessness, and they think they have asthma. In some people, the acid may get to the mouth, cause some dental erosions, affect their teeth. Some may wake up with very sour taste in the mouth. Some may wake up with a lot of saliva in the mouth. Some of these are consequences, symptoms, of these heartburns. Now, when we talk about maybe complications now, things that may be a result of long-standing, acid reflux into the esophagus. The esophagus may start to heal because when there's constant injury to the esophagus, there may be some healing with scarring. And when there's scarring, there may be contraction of the esophagus, which may lead to narrowing of some part of the esophagus. And some people may come that when they eat food, it's difficult for the food to go down because the esophagus has been narrowed from repeated scarring from this acid reflux. Some may even be so narrow that food is not able to go down. They eat, they throw up the food, and things like that. And this may lead to what we medically call Barrett's esophagus. It's another disease condition as a result of this acid reflux. And when people have Barrett's esophagus, they are predisposed to developing esophageal cancers. It's a cancer we don't want to see. So when people have acid reflux, we want it to be adequately treated. In terms of treating heartburn, this gastroesophageal reflux disease, the first thing is making a diagnosis. Let's even be sure what this disease condition is, because there are a number of other disease conditions that may present, with similar chest pains, which we need to be sure of. And the most important is when there's a cardiac condition. So we need to be sure it's not a cardiac condition and have a diagnosis, and that is usually reassuring. The anxiety the patient has and all that may be relieved when he realizes that this is not a heart condition. Now, when we look at the treatment, we look at what we call lifestyle and dietary changes. Then we look at the pharmacological treatment, that's drug treatment. Now, in terms of lifestyle changes, people that take alcohol, we advise them to reduce quantity, make it more in moderation, or if possible, they can stop the alcohol, being that is already affecting their health. Those that smoke cigarettes, we advise them to also stop smoking cigarettes. Now, we also look at the medication the patient is taking. There could be medication for high blood pressure, for some other conditions. We may need to substitute some medications with other ones that are safer for the patient. So, looking at the drugs may just be what we need to do to treat that patient. We also advise patients to avoid wearing tight fitting clothes. We tell them to moderate, to take this in moderation, or if they can stop for a while, for the esophagus to heal appropriately. There are some other food that may also predispose. Some people chocolate, some people minty food, things like that. We try to look at what causes symptoms for the patient, and we tell the patient to avoid such. Some may just be coffee. Some people, when they take coffee, they develop these symptoms more often. Then we tell people that when they eat, they shouldn't go to lie down immediately. They should wait for like 2-3 hours doing other activities before they go to lie down. For those that have more of nighttime symptoms or early morning symptoms, we may tell them to elevate the head of their bed a little bit so that the bed is just on a gentle slope. This helps to keep the acid down in the stomach due to the effect of gravity, rather than the acid coming up into the esophagus when they lie flat. As well, exercise may also be beneficial to some patients. Those that are obese, we tell them to also shed some weight, because the obesity may be actually what is putting so much pressure on the stomach and predisposing, to acid reflux. They shouldn't take fried food frequently, because what oil does is that it reduces the rate at which the stomach empties into the small intestine, and acid may build up and reflux into the esophagus. Despite taking antacid, if symptoms persist, we advise that one should see a doctor. They may also be prescribing for some drugs that are called prokinetics. They help in moving food and acid from the stomach to the small intestine, so that it doesn't build up and cause this acid reflux. And of course, the lifestyle changes will have to be combined with these drugs, so that in the long run, drugs may be stopped, but the lifestyle changes may also continue, in order to prevent frequent heartburns in such patients. When it comes to heartburns, I think the main thing is not to take it for granted. Some people think it's heartburns, it may be some other disease conditions. So we always advise that when people have such symptoms, they should see their healthcare practitioner, they should see their doctors, to lay such complaints, so that the doctor can evaluate properly to know if it's just strictly heartburns or some other disease conditions.
Those who pay attention to little things end up accomplishing great things. Looking into, reflecting on, and adhering to the piece of advice and counsel of a resource person will go a long way to impact positively on our health. Here are some tips on ways to build fortresses against and shed some habits, all in the view to nipping heartburn in the bud.
Tips for the prevention of heartburns. Avoid smoking or smoke exposure. Smoking reduces saliva production, giving you less of this natural alkaline fluid to help neutralize stomach acid. Also, smoking can weaken or relax the lower esophagus sphincter, LES, the valve of the junction between the esophagus and the stomach. If the lower esophagus sphincter is not working properly or relaxed inappropriately, stomach acid and food can reflux back up into the esophagus. This can irritate the esophagus, causing heartburns. In addition, smokers are prone to coughing, which increases abdominal pressure and can lead to heartburns. Modify what you eat and what you drink. What you eat and drink, as well as the timing, may trigger heartburn. The reason why you experience heartburn at night includes the fact that your digestive system slows down when you sleep. The food in your stomach stays longer there while you are lying down in a prime position for the food to be refluxed. With this in mind, experts advise that try eating 6 smaller meals each day instead of 3 ones. If you can structure having your larger meals earlier in the day and a lighter meal for supper, avoid late night snacking. Eat while sitting upright and remain upright, sitting or standing for 45 minutes to an hour after eating. Do not lie down or go to bed 2 or 3 hours after eating. Drink water. Drinking water may help the heartburn because it aids digestion. However, drinking too much water at one time increases the volume of stomach contents and can worsen heartburn symptoms. It is better to drink smaller amount of water throughout the day rather than large amount less often. Avoid foods that trigger heartburn. Certain foods can trigger heartburn symptoms in many people. And it is advisable that people with chronic heartburns limit or completely avoid these foods and beverages that may contribute to their symptoms. Though everyone is different, here is a list of the most problematic foods for the people with heartburns. Deep fried foods. These are one of the major triggers of heartburns or acid reflux. French fries, fried chicken, and other oil-drenched foods are hard to digest and can increase your chances of having heartburns. Fatty foods slow digestion. The longer you have food lingering in your stomach, the more likely you will experience heartburns. Acid foods like citrus fruits can increase heartburns. Avoid excessive intake of oranges, grapefruits, lemons, and their juices. Tomatoes and tomato products. Like tomato sauce, tomato paste, and tomato juice can trigger heartburn. Foods that combine several heartburn offenders can be problematic for people prone to heartburns. Coffee. Caffeine found in coffee can stimulate acid, plus coffee in an acidic beverage. Individuals may tolerate the caffeination, but cutting out coffee altogether can help reduce heartburn episodes. Chocolate. Chocolate can prevent the lower esophagus sphincter from fully closing, thereby causing stomach acid to creep up into the esophagus, causing heartburn. Peppermint relaxes the lower esophagus sphincter. While peppermint tea might seem like a soothing remedy for heartburn, it can make it worse. Spicy food are veritable triggers for heartburn, and they can irritate the esophagus. Be intentional in knowing your threshold as far as the consumption of spicy foods are concerned.
In the words of Mark Twain, continuous improvement is better than delayed perfection. Keeping a date with Better Eat Today is one of the veritable ways to add substance and value to your wellness and well-being. This is where we will be saying our goodbyes, but not to worry, we will be back next time on the network service of the NTA. You can view this episode as well as previous editions on our YouTube page, youtube.com/bettereattoday. My name is Yetunde Jayola. Tom Stoppard says, a healthy attitude is contagious, but don't wait to catch it from others. Be a carrier. Goodbye, stay safe, God bless.